Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million and beyond as you up arrow your business and your personal life. Joining me today is Luke Schneider. Luke is the founder and CEO of Fire Dept Coffee, which is a veteran certified business. FDC is a true pioneer in spirit-infused coffee. In 2023, he received the Leadership Award for Citizenship from the Specialty Food Association. FDC has been on the Inc. 5000 3 years in a row, and they have a mission to give back and support firefighters, which I think is really cool. Luke, I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, William.
Yeah, I was thinking about how we knew each other, how we first met. And I couldn't remember, but I'm pretty sure it was just LinkedIn. I think I posted something on LinkedIn and you were like, hey, I kind of like what you're saying. And we chatted about approaches to advertising. Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, that sounds right. And I love your LinkedIn post and content as well. And
likewise.
And you're always staying up on the what's new and happening. And so it's a fast moving, dynamic landscape. And so you do a good job at keeping up with everything.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks. It does change fast in our environment, doesn't it? Oh, well, I'm excited to chat with you today. There's a lot of really fun growth stuff and things that you've gone through to be able to grow FTC to where it is today. Before I do dig into that stuff, I do want to announce our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd recently. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. That said, on to the good stuff. I want to start with just, it's obvious, it's somewhat obvious in the name, but what is Fire Dept Coffee and why did you start it in the first place?
So we're a high quality coffee company that gives back and supports sick and injured firefighters. And we started online, and I started online because that was what worked best with my schedule. So working 24 on, 48 off. When I was a firefighter, I met my wife. She was a barista. So I fell in love with the craft. I was already in love with coffee because of the functional aspect of keeping us alert and caffeinated during long shifts. But fell in love with the craft of coffee. My wife and I said, why don't we start roasting, and we'll sell at farmers markets, and we'll do tasting events and share that craft with our friends and family. And so we started doing that. We rented out a 800 square foot space in a strip mall, purchased a 5-kilo roaster, and our plan was to sell at farmers markets and do these tasting events. And I did a fire department blend, and out of everything we did, everybody loved that. So I told my wife I wanted to start a brand and company around that and call it Fire Dept Coffee and serve our communities and be able to give back with it. And she didn't love the idea at first, but she supported me all along the way. And I started a Shopify store just because that was what made sense with my schedule.
Mm-hmm. I remember you telling me this was like a scratch paper business. It's not like you ended this saying like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to start this $20-50 million business. Like you're just like, hey, like here's this idea.
Exactly. Yeah, there was a community that I was plugged in with, which was the firefighter community. When we did these tasting events, I noticed a lot of firefighters would come. Firefighters drink a lot of coffee. We needed better coffee at the fire stations. And so it just seemed like that would be a good start for us. But yeah, I didn't have a business plan or much of one, and learned a lot along the way as everything kind of snowballed from there.
I worked a night shift for years in the hospital, and there were times where I don't know if there was a difference to the sludge that was made. There was like what we called it ICU coffee, which was it was sludge, and it was just meant to pack as much caffeine as you possibly could, and so you could kind of stay awake. Was this something where when you started making this, where the firefighters like, oh, okay, Luke, getting a little bougie over here, or were they pretty much like, yeah, no, we needed this?
Yeah, firefighters love to give each other a hard time, no matter who you are. I remember one of the first tastings I had, like, I forget what you call those hats, but like it was just I forget what they're called, but I had this hat on. Somebody came in right away and said,
A
I'm leaving
bouffant.
unless you take that hat off. Like
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
poke fun at you no matter what. And then you always have people that, the naysayers that say this is a dumb idea or this is not
Mm.
going to be successful. But majority of the firefighters were very supportive, and that was really we got a lot of support and initial traction from firefighters and fire departments, and selling wholesale 5-pound bags to fire departments. Actually, they started as 6-pound bags when we first started doing them. But yeah, it started supplying fire departments with coffee, and firefighters were a large part of our original customer base.
Yeah. No, that's good. Becoming an entrepreneur, you talked about naysayers. There's a lot of obstacles to building and starting and running a business. What are some of the things that stand out in your mind as things that you're like, boy, this sucks. I don't know if we're going to get through this, or like, this is just tough.
Yeah, so one of the interesting things was, like, early on, I never had this thought of, like, we'll never get through this. And
Mm.
I think that's like, I don't know what you would call that, if that's like a
Delusional.
ignorance.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Probably ignorance is
Yeah.
is probably the word for that. But it was just like I never thought that if we continue to
Yeah.
work and move things forward, that things wouldn't, you know, overcome any obstacle. And I wonder if some of that is from, the military background, and
Mhm.
then the fire service is like, you never know what's coming your way, or what your next call is going to be, but you always work through it. And one of the things I learned very quickly, and I think also the fire service and the military background helped me with this, is that I wasn't going to be able to do it without a team, and that there
Mm.
was a lot of things that I wasn't able to do, or not good at, and I needed a team to help me build it. And then the other thing that I would say I was just absolutely clueless about was cash and capital. And I think that's something that, every business, growing business, especially fast growing businesses, learn very quickly that you have to have a good capital plan, and every strategy has to have a financial, piece of that, because it takes money and people to execute
For
on a
sure.
strategy. And people cost money too. So, like, we got creative early on, and we did some sweat equity and stuff like that with some of the early firefighters that joined the team.
That's cool. If I remember correctly, you guys ran into a situation early on, and this is probably one of those moments where you're, just racking your brain trying to figure out. But there was like an issue with the city of Chicago or something, right? And maybe you can't talk too much about it. Maybe I'm even spilling more beans than I should. But what happened with this?
Yeah, that part's public. I could speak on any of the public piece,
Okay.
because it's public knowledge that we did have a trademark lawsuit from the city of Chicago. And I
Crazy.
won't get into the details of that, but we were able to work it out, and which actually I think was a blessing for us, because we rebranded our logo, which I actually like more now. We did have a registered trademark on our logo prior to the lawsuit. So just want to
Wow.
put that out there too. We
That's
did have a
wild.
we did have a registered trademark. So learned a lot about IP in that process, and as a business, that is very, our brand is I would say a big asset. It's our identity. It's who we are, and so protecting that intellectual property and that brand IP is important for any company, but especially ours. And yeah, but anyways, it all worked out. We were able to sell through our inventory, and we actually got some publicity from that. So I remember hearing, we had actually worked with a PR person at the time, And one of the first people I called was that PR person and said like, hey, I don't think, or they said, they're not going to get this. They're not going to, sorry, let me back up. We heard about it through a media outlet contacting us and said, would you like to comment on this lawsuit from the city of Chicago? And I said, well, first off, I didn't say anything because I didn't know there was a lawsuit. And then I looked it up, and then sure enough was able to find out that there was a lawsuit. And I contacted our legal, contacted the PR and the PR person we were working with, and they said they wouldn't put anything out without getting our side of the story. So you should be good for a day or two. And so we were kind of gathering all the information. And the next day, I think it was on, there was so many outlets, but it went national. It was national news. Chicago Tribune, I believe, picked it up. New York Times, I believe, Seattle Times. So multiple large media outlets picked up the story about the city of Chicago suing Fire Dept Coffee. But it was a great learning exercise for us, more than an exercise. It was a little stressful at times, but worked through it, and it made us stronger. And I think the outcome of rebranding and everything was actually good for us.
Yeah, and pardon the phrase here, but it's like, as a business owner, there are some times you're just gonna feel like you got kicked in the nuts. But to your point, the thing that's really nice, I should say the beans, right? The coffee beans here. But to your point, it worked out to benefit in some ways, where it's like you got publicity that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. You ended up with a logo that you ended up liking better, and so I love the resilience that you had through that. You grow through this, and then there's other roadblocks, there's other hurdles that come up that kind of push against some of this growth and success. And I remember you telling me about the time when you were like sleeping in between boxes, like in the warehouse or whatever. Like, what was going on there?
Yeah, so I think it was USA to it was a USA Today or Good Morning America or what. I apologize, whatever media outlet it was. I can't remember exactly, but it was one of these large media outlets that covered us, and they highlighted our product, and we were not aware that was going to have, it was a great thing that happened to us, but our orders, shot up, and they kept shooting up. And I think, for us at the time, because we were fairly new, we were still in that 800 square foot strip mall on a 20 kilo roaster. And I think within the first day we had like 20,000 in orders from that day. And that was a lot for us at the time. Yeah. And so in the orders, and there was like a few chain of events, and I felt like there was just a lot going on at the time where we were getting a lot of exposure, a lot of media coverage, and that was helping, drive some awareness and trial and purchases on our storefront, on our Shopify store. And we just were roasting around the clock, and we have that space. We maxed our space, and we just kept growing. So it was like it never stopped from there. And we got to a point where we were literally roasting 24/7 for 3 months straight. And I was recruiting other firefighters. I was bringing in friends and family. I was teaching people to roast, and we were roasting continuously. So it was you put some beans in the top of the roaster, you drop the beans that are done roasting, and then you close that and then drop the beans right in the roaster. And it was a manual process, and the bagging, we had a vibratory fill machine, and we would just, from the roaster straight to the machine, straight over to the boxing, and we were just boxing and packing orders. And so roasting, packaging, and shipping orders pretty much around the clock. The roasting was around the clock for 3 months straight. And so we ran out of space and capacity, and we needed capital to grow. We needed a bigger space. And another thing I learned in business was like, you always want to do the right thing, but sometimes you also need to know where you stand So like we were renting that space, and I told the landlord, I said, hey, we need a larger building. I just want you to know, like, we're looking, so that you can start planning, for potential renters. And he said he was going to double the rent right away, and said he was
Wow.
doubling the rent. And because where I messed up there, here I'm trying to do the right thing and give him a notice, like as much heads up as I possibly can, is what I was thinking.
Hmm.
Our lease was, it was, I can't remember if it was a multi-year, if it was like a yearly lease, but once that period is up, you then go to a month to month. So we were on a month to month, and I didn't realize that he could just cancel the lease on us at any time. And
Oh,
so he said, you're either going to pay double and sign another year lease, or I'm getting, somebody else in there right away. And I said, I would kind of try to talk through that, and said, well, I was trying to give you a heads up so you can plan for it. I didn't think you were going to like kick us out right
yeah.
away if we don't sign the lease for another year and at double the rate. And I said, it's not going to work. We can't sign the lease because this is not enough space for us. And so anyways, we ended up finding a building. And it was a very, the building was in rough shape. It was very rough shape. And, and it was pretty much like an abandoned building the roof was starting to fall. It had a lot of issues,
Wow.
and but I got it at a really good price. And I also found like larger equipment at like two larger roasters, and I got a really good deal on those. So I scored this building that needed a ton of work, and then I scored some good equipment, larger roasting equipment, and and then I also, shortly after that, we found a bigger grinder too. And
Mm.
there's so many stories, but like I'll finish this one off. We got the roaster, and then started working on the building, fixing the building up and getting that going. And when I went to purchase the equipment, the guy there asked me, how are you going to get this out of here? And it was just, there was so many things. I was literally drinking from the fire hose. It like the We're just like for the last 2 years, I would say, now we have budgets and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. But for the first 5 years of the business, it was literally drinking from a fire hose
Yeah.
nonstop, like figuring one thing out to another. It's like, and then I said, I don't know, there was an engineer that was there at the time, and he's like, well, I can help you. I'm not doing anything right now. So
Wow.
he came and helped us install this equipment once we had the build. He actually helped us with some of the building stuff, and the HVAC and stuff like that we needed to put in. And he never left after that, because we never stopped growing, and he still works
Yeah.
with us today. And this was years ago. This was, I don't even know how many years ago now, maybe uh, 4 years ago or so. But yeah, he never left, because we just always had growing and adding on things. And now we're vertically integrated with our roasting. We have our own, we do our own shirt printing, and we have 50,000 square feet of facilities here in Rockford, Illinois.
That's amazing. The thing that I liked about like each one of those obstacles were basically the catalyst to whatever needed to happen anyways, right? And so it's like, okay, you were trying to do the right thing, you needed to grow, but then as a result of giving this, this problem now comes up. But that ends up being the thing that helps you find the right space that you needed to at the right price, and then the gear. It's really fun the way things work out, where it's like you oftentimes the things that we need to change and help us grow are the very things that we're not willing to face. And then once we face them, that's when growth happens.
You're so right. I think there's so much there, and sometimes you just don't know what's on the other side until you get it on the other side. And it's not ideal, to be running into all these different obstacles every day or week, and have a new challenges to be working through them. But I think resiliency is a key thing to being able to work through those challenges. And I think if you do work through the challenges, naturally you get better at preventing.
Mhm.
You it makes you uncomfortable, and you don't people don't like to be uncomfortable, so we try to avoid it in the future.
Right. But that resiliency has led to some really good wins for you as well. I understand that you are now sold in thousands of different Walmart stores.
That's correct. Yeah. Yep. We
Tell me
are.
the story about like how did this happen?
Yeah, so Walmart was our number one retailer that we wanted to win and or earn, I should say. And they are the place where they're the retailer. Well, they're a Fortune 1 company, largest retailer,
Sure.
and they have this initiative to invest in American jobs. And so they're investing, they've already invested billions, but over the next, I believe it's 10 years, they're investing $350 billion in US made, manufactured, grown, or assembled products. And so we had our eyes set on Walmart because that's where people spend the most on coffee, and
Sure.
it's the number one place people shop coffee, and number one place where people purchase the most for coffee at home. And so we heard about this opportunity. We There was an invite to go pitch to go to this opportunity, which is called Open Call. And it was in Chicago. There was an invite. We have a fire truck that we deploy to disasters, and we also take it to like marketing activations. We brought
Mhm.
our fire truck down there, served coffee
Brilliant.
at a Walmart near Chicago, and then pitched our story. And what was really cool is I met one of the Walmart directors there, senior director at Walmart, Mark Espinoza, and he spent so much time with me, like learning about our brand, hearing our story, our mission, even walked the store with me. And so it was an incredible opportunity to get it to be able to share our story. And then we got invited to go pitch at Open Call. And then when we pitched, we ended up not meeting with the merchant. We ended up meeting with a senior vice president and a vice president. And Jason Patton was there with me, our senior vice president and part owner. We were there and we presented. And what was really cool is they said when they went into that meeting, they were thinking that they might give us a few hundred stores, but
Sure.
they said once they learned more about our capabilities and our story and our mission and our plan to promote it, they said that this is much bigger than that, and they said this is at least 2,000 stores. So they ended up rolling us out with 7 SKUs nationally in 2,300 stores, and then shortly after that, this was actually a few months back, like I think it was June, we hit the shelves. And since then, now they've expanded us into 3,000 stores.
Nice.
So we're growing with them, and then we came back this year in October to be there to support other companies pitching an Open Call in 2024, and we ended up getting a golden ticket to expand into Walmart Canada. So we're going
Wow.
international now into Walmart.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
If I remember correctly, you said that his title was the VP of Breakfast, right? Is that like
What was
the
that?
official title, the VP of Breakfast that you met with?
Yeah,
I don't know.
so it was like senior vice president of all of grocery. Her name's
Oh,
Melody, and then the VP of pantry. So
oh,
so
I
everything
wrote it
that's in
down
your
wrong
pantry,
then.
which
I
pretty
was
much
like VP of,
every well, it's pretty much breakfast. It's like your
yeah,
cereal, your pantry is
yeah, yeah.
everything you'd keep in the pantry, coffee,
I
tea.
just liked that. I was like, the VP of Breakfast is like, ooh, I want to be the VP of lunch, you know? Um, You also, one of the things that I love about fire department coffee that I think you guys do so much better than a lot of other D2C brands. Well, and I should say, like, this is one of the things that D2C brands do well, but you guys are doing an exceptional job. Is you have amazing content, and it is not just content for the sole purpose of trying to sell the coffee. You guys just actually have entertaining content. Um, and a lot of this has come from firefighter Fenton, if I remember correctly. Like, how did you guys get connected with him. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, Firefighter Fenton is a part of our team, and
Sure.
he's in a lot of that content. It's really Jason Patton,
Okay.
Fire Department Chronicles, who leads
Oh,
in
sure.
like a sister brand of ours. But it's when Jason and I, so he's our senior vice president, also part owner. When we met, he's still an active firefighter in Florida. But when we met, it was always like we're gonna join forces, and we're always gonna be focused on the same goals. So that way, you know, rising tides raises all ships, and we're
Mhm.
focused on the same goals, same mission. And he leads that team. And what's really cool, in my opinion, about the content is everybody that's in the content is actually active, or I should say, majority of the time, everybody that's in the content are all active firefighters. And you're absolutely right. It really is hard to connect the organic reach of the content creation to direct sales. Really hard to do that. But what we believe is it is really top of funnel and brand awareness, which helps with customer acquisition, which helps with loyalty and
Mhm.
multiple aspects, of of just growing the brand. But yeah, but thank you for saying that. And yeah, the we have across all of our social media channels 17 million followers.
Amazing. Um, that leads me really good into tactics, which some of the things that you guys have done to help grow. When I was asking you, what is the biggest tactic that you think has helped support this? You said it was building a community. What does that look like, building a community? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I think it's multiple parts to building a community, because your community, and we have multiple communities. The way we see it is we have our local community, which you always want to be
Sure.
strong, locally, and for because people are going to support the communities that are closest to them. So if your local community, they want to support you because you're a local company. The firefighter community, because they want to support their fellow firefighters, and first
Mhm.
responder community, they want to support their fellow first responders. The veteran community, often people want to support their fellow veterans. And so it's all very similar. And then you have your coffee community. So every community that we're a part of or connected to, because we are a coffee company, that a brand that is veteran owned, firefighter founded and veteran founded, and a lot of our team is active or retired firefighters. So I would say our main brand identity is who we are. We're firefighters. We're run by firefighters. That's our core of our brand.
Mhm.
And we want to share that message and build the brand awareness with who we are, what we do, like why does it matter, why is our coffee different than all the other coffee companies out there. And so we do that largely through social media, building community on social media, building that online presence, which drives traffic to our site. We communicate our message through, some of those tactics through our funnel, which is email, SMS, social media, activations. So, even event activations. There's so many moving parts
Mhm.
to it. But to sum it up, our community is, you know, in different areas, whether it be social media or here at our team is part of our community. Yeah, just being active in that community, I truly believe that is what separates us, and that separates a lot of brands that have built a community around them. Because if it's all about product, if it's all about innovation, trends are going to come and go. Trends are going to you can't chase trends, because trends move so fast nowadays,
Sure.
especially with TikTok and everything. Like, things move super fast, and it's hard to keep up with them. So if you're constantly chasing trends, you're going to be here and gone tomorrow, so it's like having that community and having a foundation on what your company is built on, I think, is really what's going to keep companies around for the long term.
Yeah. You talked about one of the ways that you're engaging the community is through social media. And so you can correct me if I'm wrong here, and please do. One of the best ways to do that is by creating content. I kind of hinted at this. That's not just promotional and selling. Now, it still needs to have a job of doing that, but if I remember correctly, you guys really had content that just seemed engaging, and maybe it helped promote a little bit, but it was really just meant to engage the community that you were trying to engage. And that is so hard for a lot of brands to do. I would say that I even see a lot of brands that struggle to actually spend money and time to create good content that will actually sell, let alone create good content that maybe goes beyond selling and engaging the community. How do you get around justifying the ROI, or being able to prove out that this is worth the time, this is worth the money? Let's say in the early days, it is now, but in the early days, how did you get to the point where you say, this makes sense, let's spend some money, let's spend some time on this, even though it might not have the highest ROAS?
Yeah, you're absolutely right in everything you said. I 100% agree with, and it's really difficult, and it's like it's kind of similar to or potentially similar to like how I never thought that we there would be anything that would crush us as a company, which now I realize that that could have potentially have not been the case, but so maybe naive, to some
Sure.
of that, but I just knew, like we just knew, and we knew that if we wanted to get our product out there, we had to get the message out there, and we had to engage, because it truly is. There isn't a lot of we don't sell products in our content, like most of our content. Now there's a different strategy for that, and that's what you do.
Hmm. Hmm.
With performance marketing, paid advertising, like that's absolutely the place for that. On social media for content, the more we try to sell, the less engagement we get. And so in my opinion, and people could probably agree or disagree with this if they want, but in my opinion, you have to separate them.
Mm.
Because if you focus on selling on your social media for your organic content, or your content, excuse me, you're going to quickly be downgraded by the algorithms, because you gotta
Totally.
see what works and what doesn't, and test new things, different styles of filming, transitions, different things, because if you try to make it about selling your product, you're not going to achieve either. You're not going to, most likely. Maybe I'm wrong, and
Sure.
there's exceptions to that, so I should never put anything into a box. But in my opinion, most of the time, you're gonna not be successful in selling the product or driving awareness, because people generally shut off when they're being sold something, unless it's the right time. And
Sure.
that's where really good advertisers can dial that in to getting the right message at the right time, and try to get a conversion at that point. But you gotta build the awareness first, and I think that's a challenge for a lot of companies, because it's hard to get past that. Why are we going to invest in this when we can't see a direct return on our investment?
100%. Yeah. Well said. Speaking of other types of investments that are maybe you can see a little bit of a return on this, but it's still difficult. Some of the in-person things that you guys do. So like you said, you have in-person activations. Um, what are those like, and how do you justify those as a business? Because they might not be like, again, you might not say, hey, we got a 4x ROAS today on our in-person. Like how do you go about doing those? What's the thought? How do you evaluate them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've scaled back a lot of our um, uh, sponsorship money, I should say, because
Sure.
like we're very specific on our sponsorship. We like to any market we want to grow in, and I will say content creation, like social media, whatever, wherever it is. We're the official coffee of the National Hot Rod Association, so
Cool.
that gives us a platform where we can sell. We get media placement that we get for that sponsorship. But everything that we do, we look at as if we're going to invest in this market or this this sponsorship opportunity, how are we going to turn that into a revenue stream? How are we going to make money off of it? And so it's kind of like the way we look at our marketing is it needs to at least eventually, or we need to see we need to see it ahead of us in the short term, or that we're going to get a return on investment by building an engine around it. So it's like kind of like building a team or building something that where that team generates its own revenue some way.
Nice.
And so we're right now we're working on building out our events / TikTok team. And so we're, social selling is becoming massive right now. And I think that there is going to be a lot of that is the future of a lot of selling. And from what I've heard too, in other countries, it's already a lot of, in some countries, it's majority of the selling already.
Like China. They're crushing it on that. Yeah, 100%. Let's talk about social selling then a little bit. What are some of the things that when you see the future of, because we've talked about some of the things you've done in the past, and there's actually some other things I want to do. When you're thinking to the future of growth, what are some of the tips or tricks that you would recommend to brands that are trying to do a good job from a social selling perspective?
I would definitely look at TikTok.
Yeah.
TikTok is moving in a big way. And I think, some I've heard compared to the early days of Amazon. So I've heard, different, and I think it's totally different type of marketplace, and it's a totally different, and it may serve a different purpose. But it is definitely new and is definitely growing very fast. And those are the things where it's easy as business owners to get distracted by all of the opportunities. Oh, this marketplace or this marketplace, and everything you can do. Yeah. It's like in the earlier days, I had this mindset of like, well, if it can make us money, let's do it. Well, time is money. And the more if you're dedicating resources, which is people, that's also money. So really looking at the data, looking at where you're seeing a return, but sometimes you just got to place your bets. And where do I want to invest? And for me, I just see it as like it might take time to build. It might take time to get the algorithms going, to get the momentum, to be able to start scaling it, get an efficiency with different things that you're doing, building out new processes within your company. But TikTok is one of those areas where I'm going to place my bet because I see I don't want to be the company. I don't want to be the coffee company getting in when 10 other coffee companies have already now the biggest brands on TikTok. I want to get in now when it's still early and we can be the number one coffee brand on TikTok. So that's how I'm looking at different opportunities. There's some opportunities where it's like, yeah, let's test. Let's get our feet wet a little bit. And there's other opportunities where it's like, let's go all in.
Yeah. I am with you on TikTok. Love what that platform is doing. TikTok Shop is, let's say, clunky to get set up and whatever. But once you get through all the mess, it can be very, very good. For those who are listening and want to go a little bit deeper on some of the TikTok stuff, especially live selling on TikTok, I am going to reference another episode here with Dane Hepner. One of the number one food and beverage live seller on TikTok right now. So definitely go reference that podcast to go deeper into that. Luke, one of the other things that I remember when we were talking about like the catalysts for growth and what has allowed you guys to grow outside of community is product differentiation. You've done a very good job of it's not just like light roast and dark roast. Tell me a little bit more about like what your thought process was in why you differentiated and where you went with that.
Yeah. So we love our craft. So we started out as, I got into coffee because I love coffee. I love the craft. So that's part of it is like even though we have a team that does quality assurance, quality control, roasting, and we have a director of coffee now, and so I'll still be a part of, product development and stuff like that, and the direction that we want to go. But I'll always love the craft of coffee, and that's kind of, as you grow as a business, you start to there's stages of entrepreneurs, and the craftsman was probably how I started. And as you grow, you kind of get away from some of that, and you let other people do the craft that you started and love
Mhm.
so dearly. But we always want to be innovating. We always want to be bringing new roast. We want to be watching consumer behaviors. We want to see, hey, why is this, National Cafe? Why are their sales dropping? Why is there an increase at home purchasing? And there's explanation, and you can pinpoint a lot of that stuff. But when you see where the market's moving, and how the consumer behaviors trends move, because I mean, COVID did a lot for it did a lot of different things and changed consumer behaviors in major ways, to where, and probably from your experience too, the advertising changed in so many different ways,
Mhm.
pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, and now there's like this residual, like it's even continuing to change. It feels like the consumer behaviors has been changing rapidly over the last 5 years. And so trying to see why it's doing what it's doing and where it's going, so that way we're not chasing trends, we're getting ahead of the trends. And that's what we try to do, is stay innovative, stay close to what our category is doing, and how do we stay ahead of the trends.
Yeah, and you guys were ahead. If I don't know if you were the first, but I think you were the first. But spirit infused coffees, you guys basically built that, though. Like, I don't know if anybody else built it out as well as you guys did.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. We have a proprietary process we created
Yeah.
back in 2016, and we infuse the spirits into the coffee before roasting, and the alcohol roast out, so it's non-alcoholic. But we can create some really unique flavor profiles with that. That's all natural. That's not artificially flavored. It doesn't come with some of the off flavors that some of these barrel conditioned
Mm.
coffees have, where it's like charred or kind of funky. We want it to be a good experience. So I think ultimately that's number one: creating a good experience across the board when it comes to the customer. We want to make sure, from purchasing the product, visually looking at the product, to tasting the product, to repurchasing the product. We want to make sure it's always a great experience across the board, and the product needs to be consistent, especially with coffee. So the spirit infused process that we have allows us to create a very consistent process, and we want to continue to elevate the consumer experience in taste.
Yeah, I love that. Going beyond taste, what are the other product expansions that I really appreciate? It's maybe not a product as much as like an offering. In let's say others are doing this, but it's subscription. But that ends up becoming a pretty big part of the company. Tell me a little bit more about like the subscription coffee, and how that impacts the overall business.
Yeah, so it keeps the lights on, because you have revenue that you can count on. For the most part, you give a lot of, and I shouldn't say it keeps the lights on. But in the earlier days, it was helping.
Sure.
You got this consistent revenue. Our subscriptions on our e-commerce, our Shopify business, is about 50% of our revenue.
That's
So
huge.
it is, and it's, and you pull a lot of data from that. You can see where the customer's going, or how
Mhm.
they come in, where they're going from that. Those are some of your most loyal customers. So they're ones that are probably purchasing merchandise and wearing our shirts and stuff like that. So it's a really important. All customers are important, but those are our really, really loyal customers if they're signing up for a subscription. And so, yeah, subscriptions has been an important part of our growth, especially starting as a direct to consumer company from the beginning.
Yeah, it allows you to invest differently in those customers as well. You can look at the LTV differently. And I know we did a lot of work with this too. And we separate out the LTV of a non-subscription buyer versus a subscription buyer. It allows us to look at a different CAC goal for a subscription buyer versus a non-subscription buyer. And like you said, I think, there's opportunities to upsell people who've purchased one time to get them into a subscription. So there's so many different ways that you can use subscriptions to make your product more sticky. And I think that, again, overall increasing the LTV allows you to be more aggressive on the acquisition side.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about some of the philosophy and science that you have, because you've brought up team a number of times. But when I talk to brands who are getting stuck, and there are always these different plateaus that happen to every brand, and we all reach them. One of the things that I've heard from many people, but you especially, is you need a team. And you call this out like literally within the first 5 minutes of this episode too. When you talk about being able to grow and the importance of team, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you're really only as strong as your team in a company, unless you're like a company that you have a service or do something different. And in the business that we're in, we need a team, and to scale things, you need a team. So it's critical. It's critical to our company, and it's really important that we take care of our team. And you want to build a culture, and this I think is really important for us. But we want to build a culture where this is not my job. It should always be, how do I help my team, even if I'm on the roasting team. If we need to have somebody have somebody help print shirts, we want them to be able to be willing to go print shirts if we need to, to help out that team. So it should be like, how can I help my team? And that's the mentality that we want to drive. And when you put mission to that, and then you give your team a mission, and clear goals and expectations. So clear goals, expectations, transparency, accountability. These are all critical for a team to grow and thrive. But when you put that mission in front of the team and you say, here's your mission, here's the goals, here's what we need to achieve together, and you reward the team together, and the more efficient and productive we are, the more we can grow profit, which allows us to invest in our team more, the more that we can cross-train and build different skills within our team, the more that we can, invest in our team. And everybody has different talents. So we want to be able to share those talents, and we want to bring those talents out in our team. So that way we're not hiding our talents. We should be sharing our talents. And in a strong team culture, I feel like the team will feel comfortable to bring those talents out and share those talents that they have with
Absolutely.
the team, because they're invested in the team, and they want even if it's not their direct team, they want the entire team to be successful. And so really couldn't do it without the team. We couldn't do it without our customers' support. We couldn't do it without our team, and it's vital to our company, as well as, I would imagine, almost any company.
Yeah, there's a couple of things you called out there that I really want to touch on from a teamship perspective. One of those is that, like, the team, you create the right culture, and the team will find where there are weak spots and help correct them. And I think you were the one who told me that, and I really loved it when you said that, because it's so true. If you have the right players on your team, they want to make sure that everybody levels up. They don't want anybody that's, not behind there. And this is going to hit especially well because you're in Chicago. Like, one of the people that I think about this all the time when it comes to like being the team player is Dennis Rodman. And maybe this is played out, right? Like, we've heard this story a million times before, but nobody cared about Dennis Rodman until basically he's like, I need you to get every rebound. That is your job, is to just be an absolute maniac and get every rebound. And he did. And he was absolutely insane at getting rebounds. And all of a sudden, people cared about Dennis Rodman. He continued to help the Bulls overall as a team win multiple championships. And I just love that illustration. It's like, what's your role in this? Okay, you might not be the top scorer, but what is the thing that you can do, like you said, better than anybody else? Then go be that person.
Absolutely. And in a highly motivated team,
Mm-hmm.
though, anybody who's, if you have any weak links, which, especially with growing companies, if you got a quite a few employees, there's gonna be some people that are not as
Sure.
engaged. But in a highly motivated, strong team, the team will actually weed out any of the people that aren't carrying their weight, because when you drive that culture or the company, has this culture where we're a highly motivated, high performing team, they don't want to be dragged down by somebody who's not carrying their weight, and everybody needs to carry their weight. And that starts from the top, is like, there should be nobody in this company that says that's not my job, or I'm not willing to do that. And we should never be willing to or even asking anybody to do anything that we're not willing to do. So in a highly motivated team, the team will work out any of the problems with any of the team members. And that's really cool when you see that starting to happen, which I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
you've experienced that as well. But
I have.
it's a cool thing to see.
It is. It's very cool. When all of a sudden, I can remember when that started to shift for us as a team. And you could say, oh, the team has its own culture now. And you hear that in paper, right? And you read the books about it, but it's like when this team starts to shift, and it's like, okay, you've established ideally the right things from the get-go, right? As a founder, you've set up your mission, vision, values, and so like those are the non-negotiables. These are the things that you have to have. And then you hire according to those things. You're going to make some mistakes. And to your point, though, if you've got enough of the right people in there, that self-corrects pretty well.
Yeah.
How did you learn about team? Is there a book or is there a mentor? Like, how did you develop your sense of team building? Because you've done a great job at this so far.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would say mainly probably my experience from the military and the fire service. And the fire service, my job, and I would think that more so in the fire service for me, and I wasn't a combat veteran, but I would imagine that combat people in the military on combat teams, where people's lives are on the line, you're gonna have a highly motivated team, and in the fire service, you're responding to all kinds of calls, emergencies where people are dying, and you're relying on your team to do that, to work together to get that person stable. And this as a nurse, but nurses too, I would say, like, you got to know who's on shift with you that day, because what you're working with at a fire. If you've got things that are happening in split seconds, and you've got to count on your team. So everybody has their role on a team, and it's really, that's something that is taught heavily in the fire service. Of you won't be, I'm drawing a blank on the word, but not freelance, and I forget what the word I'm looking for, but your role, and you're doing that job, and you're doing it good because your team is counting on you, and you don't want to let your team down, number one. So I think it's a lot of the experience, especially from the fire service, where your team is, that's what you got, that you're dealing with in some pretty tough situations, and that you're going to work through together.
Yeah. You call out the nursing, and I'll go there for a minute there too, because one of the tools that we used a lot that I absolutely loved, which we borrowed from the military, was SBAR, SBAR, and it was a type of communication that really strips a lot of like ambiguity and whatever from it, but it stands for situation, background, assessment, recommendation. And I think that the thing that I like about that is when you can approach that with even with your clients, or you can approach that with anybody, just let's remove some of the emotion out of this. Not that emotion is bad, but let's remove that for a second, because it can kind of get in the way of what's the situation. Okay, got it. And I used to always say, it's like, imagine, even with my team, imagine that you've got to wake a heart surgeon up in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., and you've got to get this, a point across, because they got to get heart surgery again in the morning. So you got to get your point across in a very succinct way. And so it's like, what's the situation? Your patient is bleeding out right now. Okay, I'm awake. Give me the background. What patient was this? What happened? Well, here's the name. They had a cabbage ×3 yesterday. Okay, yep, got the background. Like, what's the assessment? Okay, well, here's what I'm noticing. This, and this. Okay, and what do you recommend? This is what I'm recommending. I need this medication. I need this. Got it. Done. It's just a very good streamlined way of communicating things. And I think that, like you said, having the right motivated people, you still need the right way of communicating those ideas to them in an effective way as well.
Absolutely, because communication is the number one thing to fail almost in anything in a team.
Totally.
They always say, what's the first thing to fail? It's always communication in almost anything, relationships. Communication is key. And the more that we can communicate what our expectations are, what the plan is. I mean, you can't plan for everything, but building out processes that help you stay consistent with and improve those processes. It's just having good, clear goals and good communication and expectations. I think so. It's not just like have a highly motivated team that really cares about the mission. The team needs to know exactly what you need to accomplish and what are those key performance indicators that you need to achieve to be successful, and what do we call success in this team or in whatever the job is that we're doing. How do we measure that success? And so so there's a lot more to it than just having a highly motivated team, because we're not going to have a highly motivated team if the team doesn't know what their goals and expectations are, because 100%. They're going to feel like, am I doing a good job? Am I not doing a good job? Like, how am I being measured right now? Because nobody wants to have that uncertainty. It's just not a good feeling.
100%. And again, having the right team, having a highly motivated team, they will keep you accountable to making sure that you've identified those goals. I know that my team is very good about that. It's like, we need to reestablish our, you're right, we do. And I'm a little late on that. Thank you for reminding me.
Absolutely.
So they want that.
Absolutely. You want that. Absolutely. Yeah. Because would you rather them not say anything and then not feel like they can speak up? And then you just potentially could lose a good team member within the next month because they're looking for another job because they don't feel like they're playing, or they don't know what their part in the team is. And so it's so much, and probably a lot of it you can bring back to communication somehow.
100%. Yes. This is fun getting to know you as a person as well. One of the things that I like to talk about is, who is Luke Schneider, right? And like, what are the things that make you who you are? This one's a little bit more lighthearted, than we'll get into some of the other stuff. And I hope that I can say this. I didn't clear this with you. You don't just look like Mr. Clean. You are Mr. Clean. From
I am, yes.
Why are you Mr. Clean?
My face is turning red now. I have a cleaning addiction or obsession or whatever. So like one thing that I am known for is wiping things constantly. I'll always be wiping the surfaces that I'm working on, or my computer or whatever it might be, but looking for dust. We have really clean facilities, but we pride ourselves on that, and that's something that that has we have really clean facilities and we have really high expectations on cleanliness around here. But everybody know, but people walk through when they visit our facilities and they say, wow, I feel like I could have eaten off that floor. And and we want
Sure.
that. We're a food
Yeah.
company. We want to have good, clean facilities. But I also feel that like if things are obviously dirty on the outside, what is it that you can't see that's
Mhm.
also a mess? So that's the way I look at it, is like if we're not clean on the outside, or the things are dirty, like it doesn't look like things are getting wiped down, or dusty and dirty, it's like, okay, where's all the other messes that we can't see?
Yeah, very well worded. Were you always this way? Is this like a childhood thing, or is this
I
something you
think
developed later?
so. I think so. I remember when I was a kid, my parents would talk about this, and I remember doing it. I'd clean it when I'd clean my room. I would take everything out, get rid of stuff I don't need, and then I'd put everything back. And then I had these like figures, that like little statues that I had that were like knights and stuff, and I would like position them, and then I would like look at it and be like, that's not right. I'd move it a little bit more. I could spend 30 minutes or probably hours just like readjusting things and changing things. So
We had different childhoods. I think when I was young, I'm not even sure if I knew where both of my shoes were, and I'd show up to school sometimes with one shoe on. But I was definitely the other way. I can remember taking cars apart, like RC cars, on the bus, and I'm in kindergarten, right? And it's like I'm riding the bus, and I can remember taking them apart, using the motors and engines to build things. And it's like I couldn't be bothered to find where my other shoe is. It's like I'm invested in what I'm doing right now.
That's funny. So you like to break things or fix, or you like to fix things?
More fixing things, or invent. Like I like coming up with a new solution. It's like, well, of course the motor can move the wheels, but what else can this motor do, right?
That's cool. Yeah, ever since I've known you, you've always been like analytical, like technical. Like I remember seeing emails from you, and it was so articulate. I'd be like, I'm not even gonna read all that. Like I'm skimming through. It's like there's too much information overload. Like you're
That's
just
fair.
very. And I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. Like you're very articulate, and you will take your time and like detail, and I'm sure that's great for you, for your industry, because the details, I mean,
Sure.
details matter and everything. But when you're spending a lot of money for, you said, early on in your intro that, one of the companies recently sold for 800
Mhm.
million dollars. When you're moving that kind of, I'm sure that their ad spend was massive. When you're moving those kinds of dollars, the finest details could be costly mistakes. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it absolutely matters, and you're completely right. I would say that the majority of people don't like reading my emails. This is going back to childhood as well. My teachers would say, well, I don't know if they'd say it like this, but pleonasm is my friend, which is I will use way too many words. But that's my thing. Um, One of the things that I wanted to talk about with you then too is I love talking about like mentors and people that you are able to meet and connect with. And you mentioned that you got the chance to meet with Joe Slawick, created Fona, and how he's helped shape some of your beliefs and values, and kind of is one of your business advisors. Tell me about like the meeting him and what he's been able to help teach you.
Yeah, so I've been fortunate to meet some very successful entrepreneurs and business owners. I'm not a big like a celebrity person, so like my celebrities would be like meeting somebody like Joe,
Sure.
and learning from him, and just getting to know someone like that. And it's been a blessing for me. I've got to know him, and he's been able to coach me and mentor me and teach me. And I'm learning things about myself, my strengths and my weaknesses. And sometimes you need to hear it from somebody. My wife always
Yeah.
tells me, but sometimes you need to hear it from someone else.
Uh
And
huh.
and for me, hearing it from a guy that I respect greatly as a business owner and an entrepreneur, and has done it for years, and was successful they had a very successful company, and they ended up selling that company to McCormick,
Yeah.
and but a successful businessman. And when he tells me things about myself, he's often, and I feel like, spot on. And I'm learning about myself. And he said, a lot of times our greatest strengths are also our weaknesses.
Mhm.
And I think that's very true. For me, I am very strong minded and strong willed. So that's probably been a strength for me when it comes to resiliency or working through problems. But also, I need to be able to listen, and I need to be able to. I have a very strong will, and I can make decisions quickly, and I could
Mhm.
stand behind my decisions and feel very confident with my decisions. But maybe because of that, I should take. And he did credit me this. He said, like, you make good decisions, but some people need to sleep on their decisions 24
Sure.
hours. Maybe you need to sleep on them, 70, 48 or 72 hours, and so
Yeah.
I respect that. He also said, like, he was doing some coaching with me, and he's like, and by the way, you're not very coachable. So I want to be coachable, but I want to be open to what people have to say, and I feel that I am, but I'm getting better at it. I feel like as if we want to grow as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to learn about ourselves too, and knowing things about myself and how I communicate, or sometimes I could be a little impatient and I want to skip through the chapters. You can't skip through the chapters. You got to work
Mhm.
through each chapter one by one and take it a day at a time a lot of times. So just, I feel like business has taught me so much about myself, and I feel like it's making me, I should say, a better person.
In fairness, I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle to be coachable, at least in the early days. And I think it's almost a necessity. I'm thinking about this for the first time right now. So it's not like I've thought about this at a time. But the thing that I like about what you said is I'm also, I've been told in my younger years that I was not very coachable either, at least in business. And I think when you think about this, you called out before, there's a lot of people that are naysayers about what you're about to do. And if you're too coachable, you're probably going to listen to everybody who said, yeah, this is not going to work. You're like, yeah, you're probably right. And you almost have to have this like bullheaded naivety that you just say, I'm going to do it anyway. And then you can get it up and running. And then you do have to shift into that coachable mentality, because I do see founders who struggle to become coachable later on, and they become the very worst enemy of their business too. And so I think that there is that
Exactly.
transition.
I agree with you. I think it's I have had to, because you get to a point to where this is beyond, like,
Yes.
okay, you can work through this broke, and I need to fix this, or I need to get this building, and these things could be serious problems at the
Right.
time. um but you get into, as the business grows, you get into some complexities that are very strategic, and that, like, you're dealing with smart people, or if you're doing business deals or whatever it is, but
Mhm.
you're dealing with, the bigger the company grows, most
Mhm.
likely the smarter the people you're going to start working with and coming in contact with. And we have to learn and grow too, as entrepreneurs, or the company will outgrow me, and there
Mhm.
might be a
Yeah.
time where the company outgrows me,
Mhm.
and I need to be ready for that, but and I you
That's
so
wise.
there is going to be a time, potentially, where I hit my limitations.
Sure.
So it's
No,
very
that's very
interesting
wise.
to think about that stuff, but I try to take it a day at a time and be open, but you're absolutely right. If you're too persuasive or not persuasive, but influenced
Mhm.
by other people's influence, you could easily just do what everybody says, and then you're not doing anything because everybody's going to have an opinion,
Yeah.
and so yeah,
Speaking
there's
of
a lot there.
opinions, your most cherished possession in your office is the opinion there of your daughter. Number one, dad, the picture. You have that in your office right now today. I know what you did when we talked
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I told you that's my biggest flex.
Yeah.
I sit across from our chief operations officer, and I put it right in front of my desk. I said, "Hey, I'll show you if you want. I got it
Yeah,
real
yeah,
close."
yeah.
Yeah, okay, what's like?
Here's the elevator music while we go do 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 do, especially for the people that are on audio. Um,
Yeah,
that's awesome. How old
it's
was she then, and how old is she now?
what this was actually this year. So
Okay,
this was my youngest daughter, Ella, and she's currently 11.
that's so cool. That is a flex. I like that.
Yeah, yeah. So
Um, we've talked a lot about the business and ways that you're intentionally trying to build up the business. Obviously, you're intentionally trying to become more coachable. Are there things in your personal life that you're also trying to be intentional about improving?
yeah, that's a great question, and routine.
Mm.
I want to get on a better routine. It's hard sometimes when when you travel a lot. I mean, there's always things you can do, and I'm sure there's a lot of tips out there on how to get a routine even when you're traveling a lot. But it's easy to. I'm not the best at it, like and I work a lot, and I'm not complaining about that. It's an honor for me to do what I do, and I've been very blessed, and God's opened up a lot of doors for us, and I feel like I tell people this all the time. I couldn't have planned it if I wanted to. I've just been very blessed, and a lot of things in the company and in this business have happened at the right time, and sometimes it's the right people at the right time. Sometimes it's the wrong people at the right time. But you learn so much, and I really couldn't have planned it if I wanted to. But I have, been. It's hard. One of the challenges I've always had from the beginning of starting the business is because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into when I started. But as it snowballed, my personality is like, let's just keep pushing it forward, keep growing it, and keep driving it and moving the business alongside the team. But my family has not as much time with me, and and that's a reality of it. And they are understanding. My wife has been very understanding and supportive, and she homeschools our kids, and also teaches art, and but our kids go to like a hybrid schooling program where they go to school like in person 2 to 3 days a week, and then the rest
Like
of
a
it's
co-op.
homeschooled.
Yeah.
And it's been great and seeing them grow, and but she holds down the home front, because I work a lot, and that's just, I think, a reality of it is it's high. It's a thing. It's
It is.
high effort with low return early on in the business. As the
Mhm.
business grows, you start to see it's changing. It's evolving. We're in a stage where it's high effort, um, but you can see it growing, and you can see it continuing to grow, and it's very rewarding. But yeah, anyways, just work life balance has been a challenge for me. Fortunately, I've been very blessed to have a very supportive wife, and
That's huge.
I'm blessed for that.
Yeah, it's hard. And I'd say that, you're saying again things that I feel like every entrepreneur I've ever talked to says the same struggles. It's difficult. I even wrote an article about working 100 hours a week on Fast Company, and so my wife is right there with you. And I would say tough on the marriage, like you said in the beginning days, especially when there's no return, and it's like, is this for anything? Or like, is there an end to this? And kudos to you though for being able to recognize that and work towards that, and the fact that that is at the forefront of your mind when I ask a question like that is a really good thing. So then it's just continuing to work towards it, right?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Luke, speaking of time then, I'll let you get back to all of the many wonderful things you have to do. It's been so wonderful talking to you, learning from you. If people wanted to work with you or, follow along with your story and things like that, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can find us online. Just search Fire Department Coffee. Check us out on social media. If you want to get in touch with me, LinkedIn is pretty good. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So just find me there, and appreciate everybody following our journey. And thank you, William, for bringing me on here and getting to hang out with you. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and love hearing all your thoughts and wisdom that you share with your audience. So I appreciate you having me, and thanks everybody for all your support. And if you listen to the podcast, we appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And everybody for tuning in, thank you. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.